This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agner.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. My name is Jay Agner. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Karim Kerachni. I almost got it on the first take. Very good to see you, brother. Founder and CEO of Steamates, not franchisee. How do I say what you do for property, guys? This would be a great question to
I'm
ask.
I'm the head of franchise development for
Head of
Massachusetts.
franchise development. Okay, so you are working on getting franchises for property, guys.
Correct.
Got it. And you just told me that you recently got your first one. Let's skip ahead or skip backwards and just figure out, where did you come from originally? And did you have any entrepreneurship, around you growing up that led to you being one later in life?
Great question. Thank you, Jay. And thank you for having me, by the way. I'm very happy to be here. My background, really quickly, I was born in Canada. I grew up in France. My parents are half French, half Algerian, have Algerian roots. And then I moved back to Canada about 10 years ago, out west. Then I moved out east, started my first business. And now I'm actually traveling the world. I'm actually not even physically in Massachusetts. I've been working remotely for over a year and a half, traveling and running those businesses as I'm traveling. To answer your question, because that's a great question, I don't get that often. I don't actually. So my grandpa used to own a small convenience store, and so I grew up when I was in France. Initially, I was, there a lot. I'm talking when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. And did that impact, the rest of my life? I don't know, but it turns out that I started in science, in my studies. Engineering school wasn't for me, moved to business school, tried different things, different curriculum. And I ended up with an MBA that I've never used. And so then I started, my first jobs were from the bottom. I was in door-to-door sales and, equivalent, and really, learned and grew from there and kind of worked my way up. So did that have a subconscious impact?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Right? That's fair. You mentioned something there that I am curious about. How the hell are you productive when you're traveling and working, right? Like, I try it. And also, I have a ton of kids. So, like, that's just like, I probably should just chalk it up to having 5 kids running around while I'm trying to do stuff. But how do you stay focused and, like, actually, kind of a routine when you're away and you're doing stuff? Like, how the hell do you get stuff done?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you nailed it. Yeah, having a good routine is super important. So right now, as I said, I'm in Malaysia. I've been here for about 7 months, and it just so happened that it's 12 hours ahead from Massachusetts and Canada. So right now it is midnight, actually, as I'm talking to you. And wherever I go, I basically adapt my work time, my play time, my sleep time to that, and it usually works out really well. The fact that we're 12 hours ahead, can be a little bit of a turnoff, but I think it works even better, because what happens is I work mostly in the evening from, 8, 9 p.m., 7, 8 p.m. until 1, 2 a.m. That's, good work time, mostly for, interactions, meetings and networking and podcasts and so on. During the day, I take 1, 2, sometimes 3 hours for admin. Usually I go in a nice place, coffee shop by the sea or whatever it might be, in a good environment. And that actually what gets me really productive. And because, I feel like I don't know, I feel more energized when I'm in a nice environment. And in between those, 2, 3 hours during the day, 4, 5, sometimes 6 hours in the evening, I have plenty of time to go explore, to do, some sports. I do a lot of volunteering and so on and so forth. And so you really just adapt. It takes a few days, sometimes a week, to adapt to, the new environment. That's also why I don't move too much. From here, it is a good stepping stone. I was in Laos and Thailand, last week. So I do go explore the neighboring countries. I explore where I am, but I try not to, I don't move from one place to another every week. And that allows me to set up some good routines. It's extremely important.
No, I think that's good. Yeah, no, that makes more sense than what I originally thought, which was like nonstop travel. I guess if you're setting up shop in multiple places for some amount of time, you can at least, like you said, get a routine together. I think that makes a lot of sense. Where did you get the bug to travel? Do you think it's your parents being both sides of the Atlantic?
Could be, yeah, could be. The fact that I was born, with three passports, with three citizenships, I think again subconsciously that had an impact. When we growing up in France, we didn't travel internationally. We traveled a lot within France. There's so much to see, and so I guess I had that, micro frustration of like, hey, I want to, visit other countries. So as soon as I started had to make some money first, in France, started visiting a little bit, Europe. I went to England and Ireland and Spain and so on. And then I uprooted myself, went to Canada. And initially that was for, 6 months to a year. And I ended up spending, the past 10 years over there. So that's where I started getting a little bit more of this travel bug. And after one, as I mentioned, I did some door-to-door sales for a home security and smart home company named Vivint. And so what happened is you work very hard for 4 or 5 months during the summer. But if you stick to it and if you're good at it, you make really good money. And so I, for 3 years in a row, worked for 4 or 5 months, and then I went to spend all of that traveling the world for the rest of the year. And
Hmm.
that's really what had an impact in two ways. Not only, the fact that I wanted to make that my life to travel consistently, but for long periods of times, not for a week or two, but also made me realize, hey, this is great, but this is not sustainable. To make a bunch of money, travel, spend it all, come back broke and repeat. It's great when you're in your early 20s and mid 20s, but I wanted to do something more sustainable. That's where, entrepreneurship is one way, not the only way. You can be a freelance, you can, do a bunch of things. But entrepreneurship was my way. And as soon as I started my first business, I was focused on removing myself from the business, creating systems and processes, delegating, automating, or eliminating. And in order for me to remove myself from the doing and working on the business, you can do that from anywhere. But the benefit in that is not only my freedom of space and time, it is, I think, the only way or the best way for your business to grow when you're not your own limitation, your own bottleneck, and you have a team and you have systems in place. Then those systems you can expand, you can create new services, you can duplicate this model in other cities. That's what we did with the cleaning company. We literally copy pasted the brand, the way of doing things, the processes, how to do each type of cleaning and how to recruit and how to, do the marketing. We copied and paste that to another city, in this case, Ottawa. And it's been, quite successful since. We're actually in process of opening Toronto very soon in the next few months. Same thing, same brand, same systems. And it actually gets easier and easier the more we do it. So I know I went on kind of on a tangent
No,
on
that's great stuff.
lots of benefits
Yeah, no, I
in
love
that.
that. Well, let's talk about it. What was the first business you started?
So the first real business was the cleaning company. When I was in with the home security system company, I was a contractor. So yeah, I could hire my own reps, representative, and train them and manage them and so on. So it's kind of, being an entrepreneur, but not really, because it's not your business, your brand, your way of doing things. So my first business was that cleaning company named Steamates, Steamates. It's a palindrome. You can read it both ways. In Halifax, Nova Scotia. The reason I started it, not because I had a specific passion for cleaning, but because there was a real need, a real demand. And I thought that was a great opportunity, and it was. And started from scratch with very little money. That's one of the cool things in the service industry, cleaning, landscaping, there are lots of businesses that you can start with very little initial investment, but a lot of sweat and blood and tears. And so in this case, I bought a bunch of, equipments and products, less than $2,000, I think, all included. And I started doing the cleaning, myself, to learn the job, to learn the processes, and to, when you're doing it yourself as the business owner, you're going to provide, the best service possible to your client, because it's your first client, and you want to make sure to satisfy them and to get some referrals out of them and to get some repeat business. But at the same time, half of the day is spent, doing the cleanings, the other half of the day is spent doing everything else. So whether it is the marketing, the accounting, the networking, and so on and so forth. So the first few months until you're able to delegate are really tough, but actually really fun. I look very fondly, back at this time, because you're learning a lot and you're growing things the way you want. You're making mistakes that are extremely valuable for the future. So you got to welcome those mistakes and those failures, mini failures along the way. And yeah, that's how I started, and I owe everything to that. Can you repeat your question? Because I'm not sure if I fully answered
No,
it
you
though.
did. No, it was what business did you start? The
So the
Steamates.
cleaning company.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
yeah,
love it.
that's right.
What about property guys? How did you feel the need monetarily to go back and work for somebody else? Were you just excited, interested in franchising? Like, how did you shift back into a 9 to 5 ish, quote unquote 9 to 5 after starting your own business?
Yeah. So actually, to correct that, I started another business. So
Okay.
Propagas is not my business, but actually, I started a corporation, and for the first time, I had to find some investors because I had to buy in Property Guys to be the head of franchise development for Massachusetts. I basically acquired all franchise in the state, and my job is to then find and select the best fit for each of those territories. So to do all the marketing and advertising and sales for that state. And so starting another business obviously was easier, but finding some initial capital, first time I did that, because as I said, the first business that was from my own money and that was very little initial investment. We grew exclusively on profit. In this case, no, I needed actually a large investment. And so finding investors was a new challenge that I had to conquer. Found six investors with different level of investment, all of them from my direct circles, whether it is friends, some family, but mostly friends or people from the community that I knew somehow and that I approached. So that was super interesting to do things differently. And on top of that, bringing a model, so the property ad model, to a brand new market that I was not necessarily super familiar with. Massachusetts, I never lived there. I've been there, but I never lived there. So I had to do all the market research. There was a lot more, initial work than the cleaning company. I went for it. There was an opportunity. Let's do it and let's figure things out. In this case, no, there was a lot of stuff, financial projections and crushing the numbers and market research. Which state will I open property guys first? Florida and Texas were already active, but beside that, I had 48 states, to choose from. And so I selected Massachusetts for a bunch of reasons. I think that's where the model will be the most successful. But that took a lot of work between when I came across the opportunity. That was my accountant who, brought up the idea, and then I dug into it until figuring out, the extent of that opportunity and talking to people at property guys and so on. Then finding investors, incorporating the business, getting started. That took a full year, actually. So there was a lot of work prior with, no income. So you have to really believe in what you're doing. And then it took another, almost another year to find the first customer and basically figuring out what is your target audience, how to approach that target audience, trying a whole range of ways to acquire leads and dealing with each of those leads, perfecting your pitch, because it's a lot of sales, not in the sense of pushing the product to or the service to someone, but really I see myself as a guide. Talking to someone who would be a good fit for that model, I have to obviously, get some interest out of him, but it's really guiding them through the process, in learning about it, getting excited about it, doing their own research and financial projection and so on, and then taking them all the way to, the agreements, reading it and signing it, and then getting started. That's really the extent of my work. So at no point really can you or should I'm sorry, no point I should push something that is to franchise that to someone that is not a good fit for what we
Right.
do, because myself, all the next franchisee and the company at large relies heavily on the success of each franchisee. And so we got to make sure we find excellent, fits for each franchise. So it's been a whole different adventure. But what I can say from there, what I learned and what actually really gets me excited, to this day, is that I've done the whole starting a brand from scratch and starting a startup from scratch, and it's been great, but it's not easy, and that's why so many startups are not successful. So I see the value of owning a franchise is just so much higher, because you're buying in a strong brand. In this case, 25 years experience, hundreds of franchisees went through the system or are currently active. We have about 110 franchise. So you buy in, systems and processes in place. You don't have to make all those mistakes, sometimes costly mistakes. No, you just have to follow the process. And also you buy in an economy of scale. A lot of things you don't have to get. You don't have to get a graphic designer and a web designer and an SEO person and, salespeople and so on. All of that is provided to you by the franchisor and that's provided to each franchisee. So that reduces the cost drastically. But 5 people that you don't even need to hire for your franchise, and you can just focus on business development, educating people in your territory and bringing on, more listings in your territory. So my point being, seeing how tough it is to start a business from scratch and that increased in my mind, the value of becoming a franchisee when you're an aspiring entrepreneur.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And just so for people who don't know, what is the what is what does it mean to be a proper? First of all, what does property guys do specifically, and what does it mean to be a franchisee for property guys? What are they doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So propertyapps.com, let's start with that. So for the past 25 years, as I mentioned, they have been the alternative solution to the traditional real estate model. Meaning for someone wanting to buy or sell, specifically selling any kind of property, your home, your condo, commercial property, a mansion, you instead of using the traditional model, which is to get an agent, a real estate agent, paying a 5 or 6% commission, which can be a lot, getting a lawyer, getting a photographer, stager, appraiser, and so on and so forth. All of that costs money, and you kind of lose control in the process. Um, so with property guys, you can list your property for a one-time flat fee. That one-time fee doesn't just include the service of an agent, but actually all those professionals that I just mentioned and more are included in this package. So one-time flat fee, you get everything. You don't have to spend anything else, any more money. And that one-time flat fee in the property get model is actually in the 4, 5, 6 grand range. And it doesn't matter if your property is worth $250,000 or $2 million. It's the same, one-time flat fee. So that allows people to keep the level of control they want in the process of selling their property. Some people want to be more hands-on, and others, want to be completely hands-off. But it allows everyone to save at least 15 grand and sometimes upwards of 50 or 60 grand in the process of selling their property. So that's what Property Guys does. An amazing model that brings so much value to each individual client. And it's really big in Canada. In some markets, they have over 50% market share. So half of the properties for sale, it's Property Guys. So now what is the value for a franchisee? Because that's really where my focus is. Well, those franchisees often come from the real estate industry. So say an agent, a real estate agent that might be struggling in differentiating themselves. Every agent have the same value proposition. They all do the same thing. You can use John, Mike, or Cindy. You're gonna have your property sold, hopefully. So they have trouble differentiating themselves. It's a very overcrowded industry. They don't usually make the income they expected to make when they got into the industry. Only the top 5%, 10%, make really good income. Beside that, everyone else doesn't break six figures or, barely, and work really hard for it. So becoming a franchisee basically solves all those problems. Not only you get to stand out from the crowd and offer something vastly different from everyone else in your state, you're unique. You're exclusive. So you have a territory. So in Massachusetts, it can be Boston, Essex County, Cape Cod, but we have in each state, you have dozens of sort of territories, and you own one where you're exclusive. So you're one out of one. You don't have any competition internally. Any leads, any client in your territory are yours. So imagine being the only Keller Williams in Boston. You'd make a killing. So it's the same thing. And on top of that, you own a business, and you're not just a contractor, and that's very important. You're not running from one commission to the other for 40 years or whatever long you're an agent. No, you own the business and you work on growing the business, growing the brand locally. And so all the value added to that business, first off, as we mentioned earlier, you actually can become hands off. So you can make more income than as an agent and be, hands off, not, I wouldn't call it passive income, but close to it. You can have a team running the show eventually and so on. And eventually, after 10 years, 20 years, you might want to sell your franchise for, 10 or 15 times more than what you got it for initially. As an agent, you cannot sell your license. You can work for 40 years and pretty much have nothing to show for when you want to retire or when you want to move on to something else. So those are some of the reasons why the property as franchise model is so competitive in terms of, for franchisee. It can be also a new stream of income. Say you're a mortgage broker, you know the industry, you have passion for real estate. Well, you want to have a new stream of income where, cross pollinate, your clients, or, refunnel your clients from your franchise to your mortgage and vice versa, and really maximize the potential on both ends. So there are many reasons for real estate professionals to choose to become franchisee.
Yeah, no, I love all those benefits, especially for somebody that may be overwhelmed by completely starting their own business. At least it's shortcut to a lot of those things. Um, what is next for Steamates? You mentioned Toronto. You How are you balancing, you know, growing that business, but also giving the amount of time you need to give to property guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my focus is 90% property guy, because for Steammates, I actually already sold 60% ownership last year, a year ago, for that reason, because I started property guys and I thought I could juggle the two. And I realized that I wasn't giving property guys its real due in terms of, of my time and my efforts. It was taking it took a lot more than I initially, expected for things to now take off. And so Stimates, how I do have a business partner who is there. He's also hands off. We're kind of overseeing the business, but it's good to have someone, on the ground, and he does meet with the teams there occasionally and so on. Now we are, looking at opening Toronto, because funny enough, when you start a business, you're looking for first customers. That's, the title of your show. In this case, for Toronto, it's the other way around. We actually are signing on a new huge client for us who are nationwide. So we're signing them for Ottawa, but they're so happy with our service that we are actually in discussion to provide service to them also in Toronto, where they have even more properties for us to take care of. So it is basically, that's an opportunity for us to open a branch to service them first. And as we have our team there and so on, things are set up, then we're going to expand, our offering, just like we did in Halifax and in Ottawa. But it's interesting to do things, the other way around. We're opening for that client, and then we're going to expand Steamates Toronto, in the month and years to come, hopefully to become probably our number one branch, because the potential in Toronto is it's huge.
Right. No, that makes sense. So, who was your first customer for Steamates? And you mentioned your first franchisee took a year. Who was your first customer for both of those?
For Steamate, actually, I'm gonna shout out to him. His name is Neil Andrino, a very successful realtor, actually, and multi-business owner. But he was a good friend of mine that I met through networking, and we became friends this way. And he ended up being our first customer. When I started Steamates, I told him about it, and he owns a bunch of properties. It was like, you know what? I actually have that property that I'm flipping, and we need a good deep cleaning there. Can you do it? And I know that, I remember very clearly that it was late. I went there. I asked, a friend to join, and we did it. We spent, I don't know, like 5 hours up to like midnight after a whole day of work. But just so excited. I remember very clearly because I was so excited. Our first customer, and first money coming in. After that one, we got three more jobs out of him. He referred us to some people. In parallel, I did acquire some other clients, a restaurant bar. Forgot the name of it, but it's a pretty big name in Halifax, which I think I got them through simply going there with my business card, meeting the owner, and a few customers like this, big customers, just being bold and going there and introducing yourself. Hey, I want to talk to the owner. Hi, my name is Karim. I own a cleaning company here. I'm curious, who does your cleaning here? And often they are in the market, or they are just not super happy with their current cleaning company, or it's their staff, the bartenders and so on during the cleaning. And you gotta have an answer ready for each of those cases. If it's the staff, well, it's not really their job. I understand that you might not be satisfied with the quality. You know what? Give us a shot. I'd be happy to do 50% off, for the first time. I know I'm going a lot into giving advice here, but don't be shy in offering your service for free or 50% off or whatever, because that's a great opportunity for you to learn how to provide this service better. And that's a great opportunity for this client. If they're satisfied, they're going to keep you even when you want to sell, you want to charge them full price
Right.
if you've done a good job. So a lot of people are scared of offering value for free, offering service for free. I think that's one of the great way to get your first customers. So yeah, having that one great asset, which is Neil, and I thank him, to this day. And in parallel, going out there and meeting restaurant owners in my case and so on, and giving my business cards and not being shy to approach them, maybe offering them 50% off. All of that gave us, a pretty large portfolio in the first 6 months. Really, we ended up I ended up hiring to 2 months, and I ended up not having to do any cleaning myself after 8 months. So in the first 8 months, we grew really quickly and tried to continue this way from there on.
I love it. All right, man. Final question for somebody who's a traveler. I'm going to modify this question a little bit because I'm curious. I typically ask if you could do anything on earth and you knew you couldn't fail, what would it be? But I'm going to ask you, where is the place that you are the most, uh, and when are you going to get there?
That's a great question. I have so many. So I have two answers for that, because one of the places that is on top of my bucket list has been for a long time and not that far. So I should go. It's New Zealand. I
Mhm.
think it's on the top of bucket list of a lot of people for many reasons. I mean, it's a beautiful country. I think it's a very well run country, very respectable in a lot of aspects. And the Kiwis, so the locals, are amongst the nicest people that I've ever met. You meet a lot of Kiwis traveling, and often you notice that they're from New Zealand just by their kindness and approachability. So shout out to everyone in New Zealand. I don't know if there are any in
I'm sure there are
your
somewhere.
yeah. So, but the one that actually I'm looking at more seriously right now, it's South America, Colombia, Chile, Peru, Argentina. So those, all those countries, it's fairly easy to move around from one country to the other when you're there, just like Europe, just like Southeast Asia. So we're actually talking about it with my wife on the way back, because eventually we're gonna come back to Canada and Massachusetts. But on the way back, making a stop for a few months in South America, it's very, very likely.
Mary, I love that. Well, send pictures if you make it to New Zealand or to South America.
Will do.
Um, yeah, my one of my friends is in New Zealand, and uh, he just won astrophotographer of the year down there.
Oh,
Shout out to my buddy Hammer who lives down there in New Zealand. Great clear skies down there because they're kind of in the middle of nowhere, being an island and everything. So,
mhm.
Kareem, how do people find you if they want to reach out? And how do they find more about Property Guys franchises and Steamates as well?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So first, to reach out to me, the easiest way is on LinkedIn. So you have my name right here. And I'm the only one on LinkedIn with that name. So you can send me a connection invite, and I'm very approachable. Don't hesitate to come. Even if you just have some general questions about entrepreneurship, whatever it might be, feel free to reach out. If you want to know more about the Property Guys franchise opportunity, specifically for Massachusetts, but we are also in Connecticut, Florida, Texas. So feel free to reach out. The best way to find resources, Google Property Guides Franchise Massachusetts or Property Guides Massachusetts, and you'll find my website, as well as Property Guides website, everything regarding our franchise opportunities. And for Steammates, we are looking at selling the whole business, the global, corporation, with all its assets and all the potential. So the Toronto branch coming up and other, things that we have in the pipeline. So it's a great place, a great time, I think, for us to find a new owner that will be more hands-on than us. The business deserves it. So if you're in Canada and if you're looking for a good business opportunity, don't hesitate to reach out as well. Same thing on LinkedIn, and we can talk.
Beautiful. All right, brother. Well, thank you for your time today. Have safe travels around the world. I'm very jealous of your, you know, not quite digital nomad, but it's a very cool life. So, congrats on all the success, continued success, and we'll see you again soon. All right.
Thank you so much, Jay, and congrats on the success of your podcast. I've been listening to a bunch of episodes leading to this
Oh, I
conversation,
appreciate
and
it,
I
brother.
really enjoy
Thank
it.
you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Too kind. All right. Be good, brother. Talk soon. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.